Thank you for downloading from Ravi Zacharias International Ministries. Support for this podcast comes from your generous gifts and donations. You can find out more about Ravi Zacharias and the team at www.rzim.org.
So Noah shows the exclusivity, Abraham shows the unseen, Moses, that aspect, why we are rejected and mocked, because the Word of God will always challenge the sovereignty of man. We're scorned because we challenge the sovereignty of man.
Hello, and welcome to Just Thinking with author and apologist Ravi Zacharias. Taking on a difficult task is hard enough, but imagine taking on a job that many consider impossible amidst ridicule and mockery. That's what Nehemiah faced when he volunteered to rebuild the wall around Jerusalem. Today on Just Thinking, Ravi shares the challenges and lessons that we can learn from Nehemiah in his message titled, Scorned for God. Here's Ravi.
Anytime a leader is doing something great, chances are he or she will face this kind of a challenge. The first is the challenge of scorn. Are you really going to get this done? The scorning of the message has not been anything new. The scorning of the Christian message has been historically true. You can go into the Roman theaters today and see the marks of what happened and how the early Christians were scorned by the surrounding people of their time. And you remember what the Bible talks about, how it was a stumbling block to the Jews and a laughing stock to the Greeks. The scorn that we face arises from at least 3 or 4 different reasons. The first is because we claim exclusivity in God's revelation. This is not a syncretistic, all-inclusive, believe whatever you will so long as you do it sincerely. When Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life, no one comes unto the Father except through me. There is no other name given under heaven whereby we must be saved. I am the door, I am the shepherd. All of these, I am the cornerstone, I am the lamb sent forth to the slaughter. All of these I ams rooted in the eternal now. The exclusivity of the gospel has already been marked. There are 2 mistakes made by the one who scorns this. The first mistake is this. The mistake they make is that the Bible or the Christian faith is the only faith that claims exclusivity. Absolutely untrue. Absolutely untrue. Judaism claimed exclusivity. Islam claims exclusivity. Gautama Buddha was born a Hindu. Why did he become the founder of Buddhism? Because he rejected 2 of the fundamental doctrines of Hinduism. He rejected the caste system and he rejected the authority of the Vedas, which to the Hindu is sacred. So he turned away from the Vedic teaching, turned away from the caste system that he could not accept. And that's why till this very day, it is not uncommon in India to see mass movements in Hinduism moving away from aspects of that belief into a newfound belief in Buddhism, so-called, as they march towards it. Literally, by the tens of thousands that has happened. So Buddhism is exclusive. Many times the Hindu will say he or she is completely all-encompassing. Totally untrue. Totally untrue. They also have the law of karma, which is a non-negotiable in Hinduism. You ask any Hindu of any stripe, what is the aspect that you actually will never surrender to? They will name 2 for you, the law of karma and reincarnation, which is built under the pantheistic system. And then, of course, there's Baha'ism, which likes to tell you they include all religions, but they too will exclude the exclusivists, and they move on in their own direction. So what are the 2 mistakes they make? The first mistake they make is that they think it is only a Christian distinctive. It is not. It is a distinctive to every major worldview. The second mistake they make is this: truth by definition is exclusive. Truth by definition is exclusive. The late Adlai Stevenson said, nobody wants to believe anything more in America, he said. He said, what we need is a new word in the English dictionary. That word is yo. It neither means yes nor no. If you'd seen Andy of Maybury or Andy Griffith, you'd have found yo was already in the vocabulary during those times. That word neither means yes nor no. Sort of like Lot's wife, moving in one direction, looking in the other direction. Truth, by definition, is exclusive. It has always been so propositionally. It has to be so existentially. Why is God ultimately who he is? Because there is no contradiction in him. He is the eternally coherent being in whom there is no lie, there is no contradiction. They will scorn us because of our exclusivity. They will scorn us because we see the unseen. That's what they talk about as faith. But faith is not credulity. Faith is not believing in that which is not there. It is believing in that which is ultimately real and essential, even though it is presently not totally visible to the eye. When we were doing an open forum at Clemson a few weeks ago, one of the questions from the floor was, how can one believe in God when you can't see him? When you think of the question, the person was using two things to ask that question: energy and consciousness, neither of which can be seen. Neither of which can be seen. And the fact of the matter is, the influence, the implications, the imperatives that follow from the eternal and the unseen have always been there. And when you look at the story of Abraham, who was 99 and Sarah was 90, and they were promised that they would have a son, and out of their loins would come this newborn, and how a whole nation would be blessed. You see the entire 11th and 12th chapter of the book of Hebrews to sustain this fact that faith is the essence of things not seen, the substance of that which is hoped for, though not presently visible. Now, the difference between faith and credulity is credulity will believe anything. Faith is that which is based upon the rationality and the reasonableness of that which has already been revealed. On the rationality and the reasonableness, in one of our books I made the statement, God has put enough into this world to make faith in him a most reasonable thing. He has left enough out to make it impossible to live by sheer reason alone. He's put enough into this world to make faith in him a most reasonable thing. He's left enough out to make it impossible to live by sheer reason alone. Even the scientist who lives by brute facts has committed himself or herself to the belief that their rationality can be trusted and the empirical method of investigation can be depended upon. The whole move towards the scientific world in the days of Faraday and Newton and all came about because they believed in a design and an order and a pattern. That's why some of the earlier scientists, including Galileo, by the way, had that unshakable belief in God. What he was questioning of the hierarchs was, are you sure you have interpreted the scriptures correctly here? He did not doubt. He was a devout churchman all of his life. So Noah shows the exclusivity, Abraham shows the unseen, Moses, that aspect, why we are rejected and mocked, because the word of God will always challenge the sovereignty of man. We're scorned because we challenge the sovereignty of man. And then we are scorned because we claim to a higher morality. That we are not self-referencing in our moral framework. We ultimately have to bow to the transcendent. No, we're not perfect. No, we don't always honor it. But like the laws that govern reason, like the laws that govern empirical investigation, so the laws of God govern the moral framework, and we believe in that transcendent moral law that is revealed, and just for that we will be scorned. Do we claim to be superior? No, but we claim to know the superior one on whose moral character we seek to find the answers to life. And time again, you will find the scorning that takes place anytime a leader wants to build something, anytime a leader wants to lead in a certain direction. I had the privilege many, many years ago, shortly before he passed away, to be with who I think was the greatest British journalist in the 20th century, Malcolm Muggeridge. He was in his mid-80s, unknown to me at that time. 9 months later, he'd be passing away. But Malcolm Muggeridge said to me that as a close personal friend of Alexander Solzhenitsyn, he said, Solzhenitsyn told me, says Muggeridge, and I think he's put it in print somewhere too, that the saddest moment in all of his experience in North America was when he spoke at Harvard University, at the end of which he was booed. But he was warning young scholars. And one of the things he says in his talk, A World Split Apart, is this. He says, as a young boy living in the former Soviet Union, I would be running around the house playing in the dark rooms of our home. My grandfather would be sitting around the table talking to my parents and our relatives and all. And I would not understand everything, but I many times remember that the evening was coming to an end when my grandfather would say, you know why our nation is suffering like this? Our nation is suffering like this because we have forgotten God. Because we have forgotten God. And he warned the young scholars through the biggest schools. He said, I don't want you to have to pay the price, this monstrous price that we have paid in Russia for what we forgot. We forgot about God. And he said, after writing thousands of pages and reading tens of thousands of pages, my conclusion is the same as my grandfather. These horrific things befall us as nations and in a world when we forget God. I want you to know that I think Abraham Lincoln would have echoed that. I think George Washington would have echoed that. Many of the framers of the documents of this country would have echoed that, for the simple reason that when they made their commitment to the nation, they said this, to this we put our names with our sacred honor. You can't desacralize life and then consider moral reasoning just up for grabs with your feet firmly planted in midair. Scorn.
Christians face scorn for claiming the exclusivity of God's revelation because we see the unseen and for challenging the sovereignty of man. You've been listening to part 2 of Robbie's message titled, Scorned for God. And if you'd like to order a complete copy of this message, visit us online at rzim.org, or for those listening in Canada, that website is rzim.ca.
Suffering, God's silence, the existence of truth. Those are just a few of the topics covered in RZIM's Just Thinking magazine. Editor, Danielle Durant.
Ravi Zacharias doesn't always have a lead article, but he always has a closing piece called Think Again, which really looks at all the articles we have in that magazine, the theme we've tried to carry through, and wrap things up in a way that will encourage and challenge the readers.
Sign up for email delivery of Just Thinking at rzim.org.
We'd love to hear your comments about our radio programs. Email us at radio@rzim.org and be sure to let us know which radio station you're listening to when you contact us. Just Thinking is a listener-supported radio ministry and is furnished by Ravi Zacharias International Ministries, Atlanta, Georgia. To learn more about our ministry or to donate to our efforts, be sure to visit our website,